Tell us about that dinner last night and what you saw and heard and how you enjoyed it.
Well, the dinner was great. I had salmon. It was a little bit underdone, which is the way I like it. It was really good. Other people had steak. No, it was a great dinner, and it was, of course, starring Scott Walker from Wisconsin. And he spoke for a little bit, and then everyone started asking him questions, and there were a couple of soliloquies there, as you mentioned earlier. Rudy Giuliani and Al D'Amato was there as well, and some others, and it was great. It was loads of fun. Well, there were no fancy pants, though. I didn't see those.
We're going to ask you about Mayor Giuliani in a minute, but just a couple more things.
Sure.
First of all, are you a supporter of Scott Walker's now, or not? Are you endorsing any candidate, or have you, for this cycle?
Oh, I don't endorse. I mean, if I thought for a moment my endorsement would give him any credibility or would get any votes, I might consider endorsing a candidate. But frankly, all an endorsement of mine would do is spoil my relationship with everyone else.
So let me ask you, you're a pretty keen observer, and obviously you got to observe President Reagan and other presidents over the years. One of the questions some have about Scott Walker is, does he seem like a president? Does he seem to be able to fill the Oval Office chair? Did he seem last night in front of that pretty keen-eyed group to be presidential and big enough for the job?
Well, let me go back a little bit. I knew Scott when he was county executive in Milwaukee, and I knew him fairly well. I saw him many times at that, and have followed his career. He is maturing extremely well. When you get into the Oval Office, remember, it's the sash that makes the person. And being president, all of a sudden you become far more presidential than you ever were before. I mean, that happened with Reagan. It happened with all of the presidents. And I think Scott Walker is perfectly tuned to be president. I mean, he is one of a number of candidates who could fit that role very well.
One of the things that you mentioned about President Reagan, it may be true that he was more presidential once he got into the office, but he ran on a very compelling, very positive, very uplifting economic message. Walker right now is known mainly as a union buster. I'm curious as to whether, when you listen to Scott Walker talk about the economy, you see the seeds of a kind of uplifting, positive economic message that the country could hear in the way that they heard Governor Reagan's.
Yeah, Scott Walker is very upbeat. I mean, he talks about the future of America in very positive terms. He likens himself, and as most Republicans do, to the upbeat message of Ronald Reagan. I think a lot of his policies are based upon what Reagan did. And, of course, as you know, I worked with Reagan all those years, and Reagan was upbeat. But Reagan changed dramatically from the time he was governor, when I was in California and with him then. He changed dramatically until the time he was president. If you'll remember, Reagan in California was raise the income tax, raise the capital gains tax, raise the corporate tax, put in a criminal furlough program, increase social spending, chaired the Equal Rights Amendment. You know, he got rid of all the anti-abortion statutes in the state of California. Who would believe that man could become the greatest president we've had? But that's what happened. People move over time. And Scott Walker could well, I mean, he could well be president.
Dr. Laffer, I want to talk about some of the other Republicans, including Jeb Bush, who you're close to. But first, I want to just sort of document the history there, since you were there. Mayor Giuliani's words have been documented and reported today in a television appearance. He walked back a little bit what he said, but he didn't repudiate his remarks or apologize for them. How far into the dinner did he speak, and what do you recall the reaction in the room, including from Scott Walker, being after the mayor said that President Obama doesn't love America?
You know, I think I was out of the room at just that moment when Giuliani came in. He didn't come in the beginning. And I think I was out of the room, and I didn't hear the comments you're talking about. So forgive me for not commenting on what the reactions were.
Was there chatter afterwards about what he'd said?
I didn't hear any chatter afterwards about it, frankly. That was for me. But I didn't hear any chatter.
And what do you think of his saying the president doesn't love America? Is that something you'd endorse, repudiate?
No, that's not something I would ever say, and it's not something I believe. I think he's really wrong. I think Giuliani's wrong to say that too, but I think the president's done a really bad job, but not because he doesn't love America. It's because he just doesn't understand economics and really makes mistakes all over. You can't tax an economy into prosperity, gentlemen. A poor man can't spend himself into wealth. That's silly. And that's what Obama's been trying to do for 7 years now, or 6.5 years. And W was not much better either. To be honest with you, these guys have just failed and failed and failed.
Just to be clear, Dr. Laffer, you just said you thought it was wrong for Rudy Giuliani to say that and that you wouldn't say it yourself. Why do you think it was wrong for Rudy Giuliani to say that?
Well, I think it's wrong for me to say that because I don't believe it.
Right, but
I'm not going to put words in Giuliani's mouth. I mean, if he believes that and he says it, that's his comment. My view is I think Obama loves America. I think Obama's an American. I think he's a president of the United States, and I respect him very much for that. I think he's wrong. And wrong on the economy, and I think he's done a lot of damage to the economy, but not because he doesn't love America, it's because he just doesn't understand.
You know Jeb Bush pretty well.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
It's some Nashville wisdom.
Okay, thank you.
You know Jeb Bush pretty well, and yesterday he gave a foreign policy address and talked about how he was different than his brother and his father. His father famously broke his no new taxes pledge. You just criticized, as many conservatives do, some of President Bush 43's economic record. What is Jeb Bush's national policy on economics, as you understand it, and how is it different from his two relatives who were president?
Well, let me just say, I don't know his policies per se. You really have to talk to him on that. But I do know his record as governor of the state of Florida, and it was exquisite. He was an extraordinarily good governor in the state of Florida, did a lot of good stuff there. I got to know him peripherally. I don't know him well. I got to know him peripherally. He and I were both pallbearers at Jorge Mas Canosa's funeral, and I did get to know him and his policies. But, you know, his father broke that pledge, which was really the wrong thing to do. It was not wrong for him to make the pledge. It was wrong for him to break it, and he did it. And, frankly, that cost him the election. That cost the economy a great deal. And W, of course, did all that stimulus spending, that huge overspending. I mean, the stimulus spending was the worst thing you could imagine, and he did it, and then Obama doubled down on it, which is just crazy. I mean, literally, please help me in this. How can a guy spend himself into wealth? It's just ridiculous.
Of the last four presidents, which one was the best on the American economy?
I think Clinton was a great president.
And why do you say that?
So the best of the four on the economy.
Because he... Well, let me go on Clinton if I can. First place, he pushed NAFTA through Congress against his own party, against the unions. I mean, that you got to take your hat off for him in that. He got rid of the retirement test on Social Security. I mean, he put in welfare reform where you actually have to look for a job to get welfare. You know, he cut the capital gains tax rate enormously. Right. He exempted owner-occupied homes.
Take your point. You love Clinton.
Clinton was just great.
Of all the Republicans thinking of running in 2016, which one, based on what you know about them, regardless of their electability, which one would be the very best on the economy as far as you're concerned?
Right now, I can't tell you that because I just don't know. What you've got to watch in the campaign is this is a training period for politicians. I mean, politicians do like to change their views depending upon how they're received. And what you're going to see here is a training period like Parris Island, where all of these very qualified people, and they really all are, and I know a lot of them very well, they're going to go through this training period, and one's going to pop out the end, and that person will be a formidable candidate. Just like Ronald Reagan. You know, Reagan changed dramatically over the years because he responded to situations and to the politics. And these people will, too. They're going to be really trained into being great candidates, reflecting the public will.